我は見た。破壊し尽くされしあまたの年を我は見た。大地を埋め尽くさんとする原石の群れを我は見た。黒き冠をいただき千万の魂を記憶と化す汝の姿を。汝こそ魔王。この大地のあまねくすべてを隷属させるものなり。
The foundations of Ending 5's story were established when Nymph was struggling to tell the ancestors a new story, while strolling through the boundaries of imagination for inspiration. The revenants continuously modify and urge Nymph to narrate an idea she herself is unwilling to. A prophecy regarding the Sarkaz king, a story of Amiya with an unimaginable ending. Eventually, Nymph persuades herself to accept their idea and try to narrate it in order to satisfy them. Yet unbeknownst to her, the moment she lets the revenants take over the story, she no longer has control towards the story's development. In Ending 5, the crusade led by kal'tsit was a great success. Kazdel was destroyed, never to be rebuilt again. The sarkaz crawled into extinction, forgotten by ordinary terrans, or so they knew. One day, the caravan of Amiya's parents were caught in a crossfire between the allied nations and the sarkaz. When Amiya's burden beast was startled by the sound of artillery fire, she was separated from her parents. Amiya then got lost in the forest and started wandering through it, eventually encountering an injured Teresa. Despite having heard nasty insults about all sarkaz, she tried to treat Teresa's wounds, but to no avail due to her lack of knowledge and tools. Just then, the two were surrounded by allied soldiers. In the past, these soldiers have killed their own kind for showing any form of kindness towards the sarkaz. So, they weren't hesitant to execute a child and an injured combatant. As they were being shot at, Teresa used her arts to protect Amiya and passed the breadcrumb onto her without the child's knowledge. White light covered the entire area, and Amiya fell asleep. Moments later, she woke up at her parents' side. The artillery fire had stopped. Everyone on the caravan was discussing the light in the forest and the soldiers who disappeared there. Many hoped that a better future awaited them after the war. Sadly, that peace would never come. As the last sarkaz was killed, the allied nations lost their common enemy. So, the former allies turned against each other and war raged on, greater than before. They started to name their enemies sarkaz. As long as the sarkaz still existed, there was war and a chance at false peace and unity. And so begins the cycle of naming and killing the sarkaz, from small, weak nations to global superpowers, and finally dividing their own kind into social classes. When Amiya grew up, she became a battlefield medic in hopes to save more lives. One day, after reattaching Ace's arm, she tried to persuade Ace to work in safer areas, but to no avail. Just then, Amiya was called over to comfort a patient dying from acute oropathy. After requesting a nurse to evacuate nearby personnel, she delivers her verdict to the patient and listens to the patient's story before leaving. As she left, she realized she had been infected from her contact with the patient. Suddenly, the non-military facility was under attack. It's unknown which faction attacked the medical base, but many people were killed. Ace managed to help Amiya escape the war zone. However, he too was killed along the way. When the bombardment stopped, Amiya tried to save as many lives as she could, but her efforts were mostly futile. Many years later, Amiya was reassigned to a special ops squad in search for the secret to end the war, or in other words, a weapon of mass destruction. They eventually stumbled upon the Hall of Stasis from Lone Trail and started looting it. But they only found daily logs recording the lives of the predecessors, not the weapon they desired. Just as they were about to return to the surface, they were ambushed by the Colombians. Amiya was ordered by her leader to light up the spear in the Hall of Stasis in order to confuse them into negotiating. She rushed downstairs towards the lighting, but an explosion knocked her out and heavily injured her. When she woke up, the preserver activated himself and observed her. Amiya did not understand a single question that was asked. The preserver stopped asking and scanned her body. He detected that Civilite Eterna and Originium was in her body. As Preserver recalls the purposes and properties of these two things, he had a sudden spark of imagination and prepared an extra sarcophagus for Amiya, prompting Amiya to enter it despite not knowing the effects it might have on her. Amiya struggles to get into the sarcophagus and closes her eyes. Miraculously, instead of reverting back into her ancient form like Mephisto, Originium replaced her entire body, but it formed a connection with Sibyllite Eterna, thus preserving Amiya's consciousness. With her altered vision, she was enlightened about the true cause of Terra's suffering, not physical illness, but human malice. Through Originium, Amiya communicates with two gods for a solution to end suffering, presumably Priestess and Oracle, and the gods answered. Envelop herself with Originium in order to preserve hope and free herself from sorrow. But Amiya rejects this answer and rises from the sarcophagus. She wants to use this method to save everyone on this land. Preserver wishes the best upon Amiya, before slowly shutting down as his power depletes. Using her newfound powers, Amiya seals the Preserver in Originium and leaves the ruins. A strange phenomenon then begins to spread across Terra. Late-stage Oripathy patients nearing death would be enveloped in white light before turning into Originium rocks. At first, people treated it as an insignificant Originium mutation, but when this phenomena continuously reoccurs to anyone who is about to die, everyone realizes that someone is behind this. After a long search, they discovered the true mastermind behind these odd events, a black-crowned cultist, a new sarkaz. Soon enough, everyone on Terra joined forces in order to search a way to kill Amiya. At first, Amiya didn't mind being targeted if it meant bringing long-lasting peace. However, she realizes that her presence as a common enemy only brought more suffering. The infected were dissected and studied. Common folk were subjected to hard labor, all in the name of killing the Lord of Fiends. In the end, Amiya decisively seals her whole world in Originium and locks everyone in stasis. She then wanders around the void filled with stories, hoping to find a cure to end all suffering. But no matter where she visits, how she interacts, or even interferes with those stories, they eventually reach their end, and Amiya has to seal countless of those stories before they meet their demise. This includes non-canon endings like Ending 2, Ending 3, and Ending 4. Let's start with Ending 2 first. Although the Doctor did not reveal the secrets of Originium to the Twin Kings, the Doctor revealed many secrets of Terra, which solved Terra's energy crisis and greatly advanced Terra's technology. Kazdel soared into the skies, and the Twin Kings successfully united Terra under one banner. With all of Terra's problems solved, the Twin Kings prepared to tear the skies open by charging and projecting Kazdel's launchpad energy towards the skies in order to form a connection with Celestial Fulcrum. However, Amiya knew that tearing the skies open would bring this land to doom. So, before the launchpad countdown ends, Amiya seals and absorbs all of its energy with Originium and warns Pharesis of their actions. Pharesis realizes that this Amiya is different from the Amiya they met years ago. Canon Amiya was both sorrowful and hopeful, while this Amiya is just fucking depressed. Despite Amiya's warning, Pharesis sacrifices himself to buy some time for Teresa and the Doctor. After Amiya defeats Pharesis and kal'tsit, she finds the Doctor in the sarcophagus. Oddly enough, the Doctor isn't surprised by Amiya's sudden arrival and knows that she's from a different world. The reason they allowed the Kings to tear the star pod despite its risk was because the Doctor respected the Terrans' fight for a future and hope. After listening to the Doctor's monologue, Amiya starts to wrap the Doctor in Originium. As Originium engulfs the Doctor touches upon Amiya's tragic past and understands that Amiya's just here to put a pause to their end. Some time later, Amiya finds Teresa in a withered garden. Turns out, through the Doctor's contact with Amiya, the Doctor unlocked Teresa's permissions to control Originium, which allowed Teresa to fight with Amiya as equals. Upon reading Amiya's emotions towards her own methods, Teresa comforts Amiya and recognizes the kindness within her. She then expresses her regrets for not being able to accompany Amiya in the past. Next, Teresa cocoons Amiya and herself in Originium. The two kings rise into the skies until they enter the sun, until the cocoon absorbs all the sun's light. However, Amiya is more experienced in controlling Originium than Teresa, and ultimately breaks free from the light cocoon and Teresa's Originium. Last time in Ending 3, kal'tsit, Nymph and the Estrays were heading to the sarcophagus buried beneath the holy city of Kazdel, while Patriarcha was just about to attack the Pope. Patriarcha attempts to thrust his halberd into the Pope's chest, but Originium has mutated the Pope and protected him from the blow. Originium clusters began to surround and grow taller than the holy city. Despite the Pope demanding Patriarcha to repent, Patriarcha charges at the Pope and continues attacking. Meanwhile, Nymph, the Estrays, and kal'tsit arrive at the sarcophagus. Before kal'tsit opens the gate to the sarcophagus, she requests Nymph to tell everything truthfully to the oracle. However, when they open up the sarcophagus, there is no one in it, only a few Originium shards. kal'tsit realizes and laments that their story's direction has been changed long ago, and because of it, their end has arrived sooner than expected. Despite this, she doesn't blame Nymph, for the storyteller is powerless against what transpires within the stories. Back to Patriarcha. After continuously attacking the Pope, he finally lands a fatal blow onto him. However, Patriarcha was left in disbelief when the Pope begins to crystallize. Amiya reveals herself to Patriarcha and forgives his irreparable mistake of killing the Pope. Patriarcha hears his own voice reciting the prophecy regarding the Sarkaz king and falls into despair. Before he could attack the cultists, Amiya seals the whole world in stasis. Thus, the holy city of Kazdel was saved. Centuries after the last human on Lokar-Hatu was enlightened, Quelon and Amiya meet each other by a lotus pond. They have actually met each other multiple times in the past, but this time was different. Everyone in Lokar-Hatu is gone, even the catastrophes. When asked by Amiya about salvation, Quelon answers that by letting go of their obsession towards physical matters, emotions, and life and death, bliss will come to all, as all things are impermanent and born without meaning. However, Amiya disproves Quelon's plan of action. If everyone lets go of their emotions, how would they feel the joy that comes through bliss? The meaning that people give and define during their existence is not meaningless and insignificant either. Then, she seals all the lotus buds in the pond and insists that her method of freezing these fleeting moments until true salvation can be found is way more effective than Quelon's. Quelon then realizes that his obsession towards emptiness has prevented his land from achieving true freedom, and Amiya's presence means Lokar-Hatu's story is about to end. He apologizes to Amiya for being unable to deliver an answer to her. With that, Amiya locks Quelon's world into stasis. As Amiya continues to explore these doomed stories, she discovers that whenever a story abruptly ends, there are some silhouettes of the storytellers at the end of them. Believing that this group might hold the answer she's been looking for, she follows their traces and enters one of their stories. Simultaneously, Nymph realizes that by blindly searching for the end with her exhausted imagination, the end, taking Amiya's form, is putting herself at risk. In order to delay or perhaps stop the end, Nymph combines Amiya's emotions with the Sarkaz King's power to forge a key and plunge it into Amiya's chest. However, the key did nothing, and Nymph finds herself alone in the story-filled void. Amiya takes the key out and returns it to Nymph. Through the key, she shows Nymph her own stories. Nymph realizes that Amiya isn't just the embodiment of the end, but the embodiment of the Amiya she knows. At the same time, Amiya seals the story in Originium while returning the storytellers back to their world. As long as they leave, suffering and the story's end will never come. At the end of the day, Amiya is just a character in the story, powerless towards the suffering within her story and other stories. And so, beyond the screen, another person from another story who's conquered all challenges and broke all limits in search for the end stands before Amiya. She's glad someone has heard her message before her story ends and requests our blessing. First, we, the doctor, spoke. If you're tired, close your eyes and rest a little. I will be with you. I'm sorry, Amiya. I wish there was something I could do for you. After that storytelling session in the furnace, Nymph's furnace syndrome have eased out. However, she is constantly troubled by the same nightmare. Characters from the storyteller's stories, covered in Originium dust, stand silently. repeating the same sentence in ancient Sarkazian. All stories will end, and the final conclusion shall arrive. At the end of the crowd stands Amiya, reciting a line from that prophecy, melting millions of lives into nothing but memories. Fremont dismisses it when Nymph asks him about this, and the medical department couldn't help out either. Just as Nymph tries to interpret her nightmare, Amiya calls out from behind, accompanied by the doctor. Amiya excitedly discusses Kazdel's rapid development with the doctor and Nymph. Witnessing the close bond between the doctor and Amiya, Nymph daydreams again, but this time, she dreams of different worlds where Amiya is happier and achieves greater feats, all with the doctor by her side. Since then, Nymph is no longer troubled by that nightmare. So yeah, I guess that's it. Sorry for the long break and the delayed upload. I've just been resting during the last few days of 2025 and trying to remember the editing workflow and how to use certain apps after a few months has not been fun. Thankfully, the next event is a one I've made a video about. You can check it out if you want. This does give me some time to breathe and get a head start for my next video. As for those who are wondering whether I'll still make these videos explaining different IS themes, yes, I will, but I'll only upload these type of videos about a few weeks after all IS6 expansions are released, because trying to push out IS5 videos as soon as an update is released has sabotaged my own schedules a couple of times. The script will still be drafted slowly whenever I have the time during that weeks, but if you're waiting for an IS6 explanation, you have to wait until maybe late June or July. But hey, I don't know, I don't always chase deadlines. Anyways, if you have enjoyed this video, please leave a like, subscribe I guess, and I'll see ya on the next one.